Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning, I bid to the panels and audience. My name is Nur Asmena binti Mohd Asri from Tessa 1 June 2017. And today I would like to present on my actual research entitled The Use of CaLets to Improve the Pupils' Mastery on the Use of Capital Letters. So for the background of the study, writing is an important productive skill. It is becoming more significant when it comes to writing in English language because nowadays, as we all know, English is globally used. However, among the 4 language skills taught in English syllabus, which are reading, writing, listening, and speaking, writing can be classified as the most difficult skill to learn. And according to Mohd Asri, English learners should produce a text that is cohesive, clearly structured, attention-grabbing, and properly organized with a varied vocabulary and mastery of convention in mechanics. And one of the most common mechanic errors in writing is orthography, which includes capitalization, spelling, punctuation, and others. So for the statement of problem, based on the SKP, students should be taught on punctuation and capitalization rules in level 1. So by the end of year 3, students should already be able to use punctuations correctly. However, throughout my practicum experiences, this capitalization problem still occurred among the pupils. So this problem was identified when I asked them to do written tasks or answer worksheets, and I saw that they could not use capital letters properly in the writing. For example, some pupils tend to write the basic information like their names, their class name, the day and the date using capital letters. As we can see in the picture down below, the people write date, month in using small letters. So according to Mohd Asri, he had made a research on how significant handwriting is in academic performance. So he claimed that handwriting can affect students in many aspects like memory activation, information recalling, and eventually lead to students' academic performance. So the purpose of the study is to familiarize the pupils with the basic concept of capitalization and to improve their mastery on the use of capital letters. So in order to overcome the problem mentioned before, I came up with the intervention named CaLets, which to help the pupils to avoid from being confused about this capitalization concept. And I also intended to grill the pupils in an enjoyable approach. So that's why I use interactive games to be implemented in CaLets. For the research objective, to improve pupils' mastery on the use of capital letters using CaLets, and for the research question, how does CaLets help the pupils to improve their mastery on the use of capital letters? For the significance of the study, CaLets comprises of interactive slides and quizzes that comes in a game form. So it is proven that game attracts the pupils' interest and get them to be more engaged in learning. Next, when the pupils can already master the concept of capitalization, the probability for them to make mistakes in capitalization can be reduced. So the loss of marks in writing errors can also be minimized. And lastly, if the pupils make fewer errors in writing, this will eventually reflect their competency and credibility in writing, not only for examinations, but also in other formal or educational writings. So in order to choose the participants, I carried out some observation and performance and a diagnostic test to ensure that the participants chosen fulfill the criteria needed. Based on the preliminary study, 2 year 4 pupils who had problems in mastering this concept were chosen to be the participants for this action research. So in terms of the participants' abilities, both of them could actually read and understand basic instructions given in English, but the the pupils had problems in the productive skill, which are speaking and writing, due to their limited vocabulary. And apart from that, the pupils' learning habits were quite similar with the pupils in other schools, which they should be given interesting materials such as colorful visuals and interesting audios in order to capture their interest. So the instruments used to collect data in research were interview, pre-test, and post-test. So for the interview, I chose to do a semi-structured interview where the participants had to answer open-ended questions prepared before, and along the way, more questions could be asked accordingly. Next, I also asked the pupils to answer sets of questions in pre-test, post-test 1, and post-test 2. For the research procedures, first and foremost, the preliminary data collection was carried out to choose the research participants. So after the issue was verified, I came up with the intervention in CaLets, and before implementing the intervention, a pre-test was held to find out the pupils' current ability. Then I implemented CaLets during the lesson, and data collection was started. So during this data collection one, this is when the participants were assessed using the first post-test, and during the same session, the pupils were interviewed to gain their feedback in order to improve the intervention. So during the first data collection, the results collected were not that satisfying because the intervention required some amendments. So as a result, the cycle was repeated for the second time, and the second cycle started with the implementation of the improvised intervention, then followed by the same data collection methods used, which were the second post-test to determine the pupils' performance, and lastly, interview. So for data collection and data analysis procedures, the first one is the document analysis method. So in order to verify the participants' improvement, their pre-test, post-test 1, and post-test 2 results were scrutinized using document analysis method. So as we could see in the graph, the participants' improvement could be seen clearer after thorough analysis was done. And the second one is interview. So the interviews were executed in Bahasa Melayu to make the pupils feel more relaxed and open. Plus, this was also to ensure that the pupils understand the question clearly, thus accurate responses could be gained. So for the interview, thematic analysis approach was used, and three main themes were listed, which are interest, challenge, and improvisation. So for the data findings, based on all the data gathered, it can be concluded that the study accomplished its objective because the participants showed significant improvements during the end of the research. And one of the participants even managed to score full marks during the second post-test, while the other participant scored 85% marks with the improvement of 45% compared to the pre-test. So this reflects that the intervention created was effective in improving the pupils' mastery in using capital letters. So next, the research question for this action research had also been successfully addressed because I figured out that CaLets help the participants through the colorful visuals and the games approach used in the intervention. So during the input session, CaLets was designed with a video explaining about the capital letters concept, and instead of just listing out the concept in a text form, I decided to use a video to explain the concept. And as for the interactive game, it is included to attract the pupils' interest and help them to learn in a fun way. And it could be seen that the participants enjoyed learning using CaLets from the very beginning and finally could score high marks in post-test. So as stated previously, my intervention also focused on drilling. So based on behaviorism theory by Edward Thorndike, he came up with three laws, which are the law of readiness, law of exercise, and the law of effects. So focusing on the law of exercise, it is mentioned that the repetition of a response will strengthen the learner's comprehension about a certain topic. So basically, this is the part where the pupils were drilled with practices repetitively to strengthen the concept of capitalization using the intervention. So according to the data obtained during the implementation, it can be concluded that both respondents showed significant improvements. So after the intervention was implemented in those two cycles, the respondents managed to get higher scores in second post-test compared to their pre-test. Next, it can also be reflected that this action research gave me experiences on handling unexpected situations. For example, during the first cycle, the participant complained about the level of language used in the intervention. And one of them also complained about the poor internet connection. Thus, this situation taught me to be more aware of the pupil's capability and be more ready with any possibilities that could happen, like the technical problem mentioned just now. So for the recommendations and suggestions, I could see that the main strength and attraction of CaLets are the use of interactive games and colorful visuals. Hence, it is very recommended to continue using interactive games and colorful visuals in classrooms because they were proven to lift up the students' ability to master a topic, which in this research is the concept of capital letters. It is also recommended to exploit this intervention to other fields too. For instance, teachers might want to help pupils. Teachers might want to help pupils in terms of drilling pronunciation and listening skills using CaLets because sounds were also included in CaLets to help the pupils understand instructions and questions easier. But teacher can just use the function and pupils can just move their cursor to the sound symbol to listen to the sound. For example, like the picture shown, pupil can just move the cursor to the eye symbol to hear the sound. And lastly, it is suggested to add more questions in the drilling session as the researchers stated that drilling and practices are effective and impactful methods of teaching and learning compared to the traditional methods of memorizing. For the implications, research made by Klimova mentioned that games will enable pupils to view the subject in a different way and enhance their motivation. So pupils nowadays are expected to memorize lessons without pressuring themselves to do so. This is because the pupils will gain interest and motivation to keep on learning if the environment is relaxing and joyful. So when pupils are more motivated to learn, they will participate more during the lesson without being forced. So according to Zerawaga, Urusunya, and Maduku, they stated that the teachers can use games as a support tool to complement traditional teaching strategies, and at the same time, they can also learn other skills such as problem solving, critical thinking skills, and creativity. So to conclude, living in the 21st century era, teachers should take advantage of today's technology by utilizing the facilities in order to make the teaching and learning process more successful. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.